So what is Compactor? Compactor is a plugin for surgical sidechaining that operates on a per sample basis, offering far more precise modulation compared to a standard sidechain compressor, which reacts to the peak or RMS loudness of the sidechain input. Now, this approach is often referred to as ring mod sidechaining because the bass amplitude is modulated sample by sample by the kick waveform, which is similar to how a ring modulator multiplies two signals, but in this case it's used for precise volume shaping rather than generating sidebands. So first, let's look at why you might consider using Compactor instead of regular sidechaining. Then we'll explore the controls. I've got an oscilloscope open here so we can better understand what Compactor's doing. We've got a sine wave bass sidechained with Compactor to a kick drum, both muted to avoid driving us mad. The kick is in blue and the bass in orange, and we can see exactly what you'd expect. The bass is completely silenced during the duration of the kick. If I remove the kick's waveform, you can clearly see the hole that Compactor is carving out. Now here's a typical sidechain for comparison. Even with the fastest release, 10 milliseconds, the bass is still being ducked for too long. This gives us a long fade-in of the bass, rather than an instantaneous return to full volume, like we get with Compactor. The gap between the kick and the bass causes the familiar pumping effect, common in many EDM genres. And while that can be a stylistic choice, it's usually a hindrance when you're trying to maximize the full amplitude potential. We've also not got complete silence, which means the amplitude from the kick drum and the leftover information from the bass are being added together. And since there's only so much headroom to work with, this makes the kick quieter than it could otherwise be. If we have complete silence and nothing else in the track playing, our kick can occupy all of the available amplitude, providing the maximum amount of power. And just for a fair comparison, if we match the release on the Compactor to that of the compressor, we can see that the Compactor inherits some of the same release issues, but not to the same degree as the compression. Plus, the hole carved for the kick drum is now completely silent. Here's an audio comparison between the two. So the issues that our regular sidechain compressor creates, Compactor solves. And with a bit of tweaking, we can get our kick and bass to fit together like a glove, with the bass instantly returning to full amplitude, meaning there's no drop in loudness between the two sounds. Now that you've seen the difference between the two methods, let's cover the controls of Compactor and what to watch out for. My main focus when setting up Compactor is on the transition from kick to bass, specifically this section right here. Ideally, the kick's tail will fade into the bass with minimal loss of amplitude. One of Compactor's greatest benefits lies in its attack control, which works in reverse to a compressor. Higher values determine how far ahead the signal is ducked. For example, at 10 milliseconds, the signal will be ducked 10 milliseconds before the sidechain signal crosses the threshold. This is made possible thanks to Compactor's built-in look-ahead feature, which allows the plugin to read the upcoming sidechain signal, allowing it to respond in advance. The reason for doing this is to ensure the bass volume is fully reduced before the kick drum's transients begins. Otherwise, the bass might still be in the process of being ducked when the kick's transient lands. The hold parameter keeps the maximum ducking active for a set amount of time after the signal drops below the threshold. Perhaps not useful in this instance, but it could be if more of the sidechain signal needs to cut through. The release works just like it does on a standard compressor. It determines how long the audio takes to return to full volume once the sidechain signal falls below the threshold. If the release is set too high, the gap between the kick and the bass will be too wide, giving you that classic pumping effect heard in many genres of EDM. Compactor offers 3 different modes for sidechain detection. Peak, which follows the per sample peaks when detecting the threshold level. ISP, which looks at the peaks between samples, the inter-sample peaks, making it slightly more accurate. And RMS, which measures the average signal, providing a potentially smoother response. For kick and bass, I typically use ISP, but in other situations where the sidechain doesn't need to be as aggressive, RMS may be better suited. Range defines how much of the sidechain signal affects the amount of ducking. When set below 100%, quieter input levels will have less influence, or may be ignored entirely, so only the stronger transients will trigger the ducking. When set above 100%, the opposite happens. Quieter sounds have greater influence on how much ducking occurs. The stereo control adjusts how the left and right channels are processed in relation to one another. At 0%, both channels are processed the same. At 100%, the left and right channels are processed independently, which is ideal for stereo bass sounds, or when you want more precise control across the stereo field. The threshold control threw me at first because I initially thought it worked like a compressor, but it doesn't. The threshold defines the sidechain level that results in full ducking. So at -5 dB, the bass signal will be fully reduced when the sidechain input reaches -5 dB. I recommend setting this up so that you're getting complete ducking of the bass. But keep in mind that if you adjust your kick's volume later in the mix, it will also affect the amount of ducking applied to the bass. A good habit to get into is giving all these parameters a quick once over before export. I'd also suggest switching any plugins to linear phase mode and enabling high oversampling values to ensure the best possible results. And if you found this video valuable, I have hours more content available on my Patreon. Thank you for watching.